we're going to start our session. It's about the forgotten legacies of Rai Bahadur Sir Ganga Ram, 1851 to 1927. Our honorable guests are Tehmina, Poonam, Ayub, Raza Ali Dada, architect, with Shaila Bhatti, NCA.
We're here for the launch of a very important book, The Forgotten Legacies of Rai Bahadur Sir Ganga Ram, 1851 to 1927, by Tehmina, Aziz, Ayub. Can we call you Poonam?
Anything.
Okay. And we're just going to go through looking at this personality's importance for Lahore and also the subcontinent. I think we can. Iski echo hai.
There's an echo here.
Okay.
Really?
Is that better? Okay. Is clear? Okay, ठीक है.
नहीं है ना?
उनके लिए ठीक है.
चलो.
Okay, so we're just going to have a conversation with Poonam today about the process of writing this biography, why it was required, and also for everyone here to kind of get an understanding around this figure, very interesting figure, not just in terms of the built heritage, but also kind of our history in this part of the world, but also how it's connected to our past and some past that we're not recognizing, as the kind of title says, forgotten. So just to kind of start us off, I think we're going to give Poonam a few minutes to just recap what this book is about, and then myself and Raza will chip in with some questions. Raza is an architect, I'm sure you all know, and I'm an anthropologist at NCA.
So hello everybody, and welcome. Little talk to have now, and we have a very eminent personality with us called Mr. Ishtiyaq Ahmed, who is a big fan of Sir Ganga Ram and therefore has blessed us with his presence here. Otherwise, so welcome. So I'm just, I hope that my coughing will not start because, one has heard of the infamous Delhi belly, but has anybody heard of the Lahore lungs? But what I say is that it's like a tree where you want to sit and enjoy the branches, but you don't know where the roots are and how the roots grew. And he met his great grandson and he did some little bit of research and he put together a very detailed book. So too many details. So it was not necessary, And then in terms of Pyarelal Bedi's biography, again, it was a very extensive biography, but and a really one that was of an admirer writing more than anything else, because he knew his sons personally. So a lot of data came from his sons, and he put it in that book. So that was a very interesting book to have as a precedence. And then this other book by, how should I forget his name? I just told you his name. I told you his name a little while ago. The second biography, Mr. Bhatti, yes, A Man for All Seasons, Mr. F.M. Bhatti. So he wrote that, but it was again, unfortunately, lost somewhere in the mists of the books. So anyway, now I just try to be as brief and condensed as possible. I didn't want, because there's so much to say about this person and so much to say about his contributions that it just gets very unwieldy. So I tried to be as condensed as possible, and that's the result. The book is a rather small book, but I hope it contains. I have try to show all the buildings he made in pictorial form, and I've tried to be sort of in terms of its chronology, because that's what he did first. Then later on, he from engineer to agriculturalist, and then of course the philanthropist, the last. So that's how the book also runs in a way. So So I mean, it has to be read to be asked questions, and we're going to wait for Mr. Ishtiyaq Ahmed's intervention, which is going to be important.
So उस हवाले से if I just recap, ठीक है?
Yeah. I think everybody heard you. So connection, I would not be able to dare to claim that, but inspiration, yes, and the fact that I was born in Lahore and yet I had no connection with Lahore for a long time, and Lahore for me was defense and all these very modern places, and the real Lahore was out there, which I had never been to. So when I went there, I realized what I was missing out on, and that's what people like Sir Gangaram and others of his time had built together, with a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And I said, it's so sad that I didn't know this Lahore. So it was a homage to that Lahore that I was attempting in this book. So that's the connection as far as I'm concerned. So,
Okay, we have a system. So, the other thing was about this previous biography by Pyarelal Bedi. So, in 82 years, I think even in the book you mention how difficult it was for him to kind of find material to write about. So, in terms of jab aapne ye kiya, what have you added that maybe he didn't cover? I mean, you said you've condensed it. Lekin, what's new in this biography which wasn't covered in the previous?
Okay, of course, the very fact that Mr. Gangaram was not much of a writer, and he left no diaries or notes behind. He just had very technical articles which he printed somewhere or the other. So there was no data that Mr. Pyarelal Bedi could draw upon. So he would chat with the sons, and he got a lot of data from them. And so I suppose when I say that I added something to it, I'm trying to remember that I know there are some things that were not mentioned anywhere in his book or even the next book, which I elaborated, and I don't know why it escaped me right now completely. Is it the DAV College, which was 1911, was designed by Mr. Gangaram, Sir Gangaram, and Bhai Ram Singh. And this is something people don't know. It's very unknown. It's now called the Lahore Islamia College, the DAV. So they had designed it, both the wings, the science wing and the arts wing. It was a big university, college, which the Arya Samaj had built. And that's something I found somewhere. And the other one in which he played a role with the Sikh struggle, the Guru Ka Bagh struggle, which is a famous 1921 massacre of the Sikhs. I think, yes, was mentioned passingly by both of them, but I found a lot of data on it. So I was able to elaborate on that particular incident and his role. Because as you know, he had a very strong affinity with the Sikhs from childhood, because he was born in Nankana Sahib. So the very fact that he was born there, and then he grew up in Amritsar, right in the shadow of the Golden Temple, and he kept hearing the kirtans all the time. So he was very, very much impacted by the Sikh faith, and so his role on that Guru Ka Bagh was a natural progression of that, admiration for the Sikhs. So yeah, I'm sure there are other instances too that I've brought in, but can't remember them right now.
If we go back to this idea of forgotten legacies, the idea of forgotten legacies. So why do you think we've become, a stage we've launched here where we've forgotten such an important person? Other than kind of, he's around us, even from here, towards the city, the actual city. Other than kind of Ganga, there's so many spots along the way. Mar Road pe chale jaye, I'm sure those will pick up on that. That we attribute to this personality. Why is stage pe hum aage that he surrounds us, but we're unaware of it?
I think mainly it's a kind of amnesia which is very general. I mean, it's all pervasive. Most of our legacy we have not able to remember or respect. It's just gone. I mean, because it's at the government level or at the, let's say, institutions here are not paying attention to any of the legacies, any of the heritage buildings. Ek to utha liya, dusra utha liya, but not in a systematic fashion. And as you know, most of these buildings are in the control of the ETBP, which is in a government evacuee trust board, and they either have no funding or no concern. They just look after it like it's an orphan that needs to be shepherded, but nothing beyond that. So I think there's a lack of will to look after our heritage.
Is it also just to kind of, other than built heritage, is it we don't have the stories, the memories? they've not been passed on?
No, I think I think the stories and the memories are there, but they're probably not recorded properly and not passed on in the right fashion. But they're there. I mean, now suddenly Sir Gangaram is being talked about a lot, and there are stories, and people are talking. You know, so. Huh.
Okay. Do you think this, just to kind of think in terms of the future, do you think it'll fade out in a few years? Because your personalities ke saath hota hai. If you see here as well, there's an interest in someone, then all of a sudden we kind of forget about them. Do you think this is
Actually,
something that can
I'm
be
not
sustained?
very sure about this, but I just know that when I began to write about him and I began to do the research, believe me, there was nobody talking about him. And suddenly I saw a spurt of interest. I was very, encouraged. Thank God somebody is talking about him finally. And I feel that it's not going to fade out. I think that it will continue because now people are beginning to be, at least this generation presently, is beginning to be aware of his contribution and his presence. So I think it's not going to fade out.
Let's hope.
Yes.
As a person, if you could just tell for those who don't really know about him, how much would you think he's a personality who has many facets? ठीक है?
Yeah.
एक वो बात है. So how much do you think he's a product of the colonial system that he went through, or is there other kind of facets that help bring out the personality?
Point is, of course, he was always a very industrious, hardworking, and humble man who had humble beginnings and never forgot that, and always struggled in life to get somewhere. So that was one aspect. But yes, his training, his education was all from the British sort of institutions, and their PWD was under the British, so he was working for them. And that's what I think somebody had mentioned. I think it was that book on Lahore, the reimagining spaces that British architect or American architect.
William Clover?
Glover. So he actually mentioned, he said, it's very interesting that they are a product of the colonial system, both Bhai Singh and Gangaram, and decided to go in counter by helping to build the Arya Samaj College, which was a complete contradiction to all the ethos that the British had promoted. So, even though he was a product, he still had an independent mind. So
do you think that was a it was something, a gateway to eventually jahan wo pahunch gaye the, where he wanted to give something back to his culture? Because once he retires, then he worked for the Maharaja of Patiala
for a while,
and then in Benares with
very
setting up the
short while, yes.
But then eventually he comes to agriculture. He eventually
comes. When you say he wanted to give back, that was not something to do with either the British or against or for, but it was actually something he always aspired to. कि जब मैं पैसे बनाऊंगा तो मैं फिर वापस दूंगा लोगों को, because ये मैं अपने लिए नहीं कर रहा हूँ, ये मुझे डिवाइन ने दी है ये काबिलियत कि मैं ये कमाऊं, and therefore मैं ये वापस सर्व करूंगा लोगों के ऊपर. So it was something that was in his thinking and in his psyche all along.
So in terms of this character, अगर हम उनको देखें, he was a selfless man, a humanitarian, someone who's also brilliant at what he did in terms of the built heritage जो अभी है यहाँ. And then that's in his nature. I mean, this uplifting of the powerless. That's something that was always there. And then in the book, when you're reading about जो वो old people's home होता है, उसके साथ then समाधि बन जाती है. And then eventually the attacks upon that. I mean, Babri Masjid ke baad, and then the neglect even. I've seen it. I've seen it.
Badly damaged, yes.
So uske baad, what do you think this kind of figure can teach, or what lessons? What do you think he would think of the state Lahore ka jo abhi hai, but also the subcontinent in generally? I mean, these figures are important kind of icons that we should relate back to. Ke possibilities kya hai? So in terms of even built heritage or identity, what can we learn from this to go forward?
Yes, but you see, the point is that he may be the icon, and yet we very much mistreated him after 47. His memory and his statue. So we were very unfair, in that sense, that we did not, use him as a cementing force. And that's what I feel upset about, that even today we have to still remind people that he is part of this very rich heritage we had. And we mustn't forget that. So
In terms of heritage, मैं रज़ा को
आज की गुफ्तगू जो होगी उससे भी हम बहुत सीखेंगे, हाँ जी। लेकिन फिक्शन से अगर हम देखें तो गंगाराम के लिए सबसे बड़ा जो कॉम्प्लीमेंट है वो सादत अरसन मंटो ने दिया था, और वो स्याह हाशिए जो उनकी कलेक्शन है पार्टीशन के ऊपर जो ज्यादतियाँ हुई, उसकी एक क्लासिक एक पैराग्राफ में वो इस सारे ट्रेजेडी को, इस सारी आयरनी को एक्सप्लेन करते हैं कि a crowd chanting slogans for Pakistan Zindabad and so on, as they moved towards the governor house, they came to Sir Gangaram's statue, and one of the leaders who was shouting these slogans, he went forward and put a garland of shoes around his neck. And then this gathering moves forward, comes close to the governor house, and there is lathi charge. The police attacks them. And this man who was leading, he gets very badly hurt, and somebody says, take him to Sir Gangaram Hospital. So ultimately, that's the man that we are talking about. His contributions to the welfare of the people of Lahore and Punjab, I would say in the last 1,000 years, no Muslim, no Hindu, no Sikh, no spiritual leader has come in the neighborhood of his contributions. And I think Madam has done us a great, great service by writing this book, because this dialogue must go on. Sir Gangaram's, this is, I have to also acknowledge that in 1962, I had my appendicitis removed in Sir Gangaram Hospital. I lived just next door, Temple Road. So in my own life, I have grown up to be now almost 76. I have a personal reason also to thank him. And thank you very much, Madam. This is a great, great contribution.
Thank you very much.
Just wanted to add to what the gentleman earlier had said. I was trained at Sir Ganga Ram Hospital. I did my MBBS at Fatima Jinnah Medical College. So I owe a lot to Sir Ganga Ram for that hospital that is there. Thank you. Just wanted to add this.
Okay, thank you. Second part of the question is, I think, impossible to answer, but I'll try. सबसे बड़ी चीज़ समझने की ये है कि Gangaram, as you say, is forgotten. He's not here, but he's still serving us. So first we have to realize that he's still serving this city, and there's much in this city that is valuable and beautiful, that has been left behind, that still manages to exist despite all kinds of horrors that the city has seen in terms of development and all that kind of stuff. As far as built heritage is concerned, I think Gangaram, obviously he has his merits, but there was a very interesting combination of people that we were lucky to have for, so such heritage was produced. And it so happened at a time when, John Lockwood Kipling was at NCA, and his very, very able student by the name of Bhai Ram Singh, who used to be a master craftsman, who joined NCA under him. And he later on actually took his position, became the principal of Mayo School of Arts, as it was known then. So, it's not just the fact that there were these three people, it's also, one has to understand that the three people made room for each other. There was an acknowledgement, there was space given to each other's ideas and abilities. And why? Because they all had this sort of a very wide angle view of the larger good. And in this book, you can see, it looks like, he's just trying to give as much as he can. And also important is that he doesn't want to do something very particular and very special for just sort of being this sort of scientist, kind of a mathematician kind of a mind, but he wants it to be useful for people and for a lot of people. So that's also important to sort of see that whatever he did, it was always for the masses. Or इंडस्ट्रियलाइज कपड़े बनाना और चरखी वाले कपड़े बनाने वाली बहस जो थी, that was just because he wanted the masses to kind of embrace it and benefit from it. Otherwise, that process according to him was super slow. But then in the end, it was his sincerity towards the concept, whichever concept it was, whether it was agriculture, whether it was banking, it was the clarity and the kind of commitment. Genius तो थे ही, ठीक है, but to follow up with such sort of amazing work. So as far as architecture is concerned, और अभी आपने जिक्र भी कर दिया कि हम कहते हैं अभी colonial और post colonial बातें बहुत हो रही हैं. So even at that time, the buildings were actually designed elsewhere. The ideas and concepts and basic designs were sent from elsewhere, and these guys had to build them. वो आपके Montgomery, Lawrence Halls and so many other buildings. There were all these buildings that you see in Europe. So और purpose भी यही था, to have your own stamp over this part of the world. So and architecture is always used as a tool for power and symbolism and all that kind of stuff. But the fact that under that colonial umbrella, these three people come up with some kind of a sort of synergy, that they are able to create a new language of architecture that kind of comes from within this place. And Bhai Ram Singh was very kind of instrumental because he was this craftsman, he was a man of detail, and then वो जो flair काम में होता है, जो कि obviously उस time की colonial buildings में you have a set of columns and a pediment and goodbye. But इनकी जो craftsmanship है, इनका जो scale है, which is a more human scale. It's not to impose yourself on the whole town, but to bring you in and to feel that texture and feel that sort of scale of the craft. So that's what these three people were able to do. And museum ki building bhi, I think Kipling was possibly the first. You would know better. He was, I think, the first curator of the museum, right? So then once these guys got together, then Sir Ganga Ram was, because he was at the PWD, so whatever work he wanted to do, he then knew that I have this person who is from here. He's better than everybody else. He's got this amazing craftsmanship. And so whatever works he just got them done by Ram Singh. So ये जो हमें heritage मिली है, I mean उनका कितना आप शुक्रिया अदा कर सकते हैं, but ये मिली इस वजह से है कि ये तीन लोग एक वक्त में इन्होंने एक दूसरे को पहचानने की इनमें सलाहियत थी और एक दूसरे को समझने की और साथ आगे चलने की सलाहियत थी. And I think for our heritage, we are blessed that these three people were there at the same time, and with Ganga Ram's sort of other abilities to be a philanthropist and to even to fund or invest, वो अपने लैंड पे ही चीज़ें कर लेते थे जब और लोग नहीं दे सकते थे कुछ. तो this really played out very well for our heritage, I think. अच्छा, I personally think ये बहुत complicated subject है, because even when ये लोग थे तो architecture as a profession नहीं पढ़ाया जाता, engineers होते थे. You'll be surprised to know, वैसे अभी भी जब इश्तिहार आता है किसी project के लिए bid करने का तो engineering council से मांगते हैं, architecture वाला नहीं मांगते, तो हमें शिकायत करके architects डलवाने पड़ते हैं. So आज तक ये concept है कि बस engineer ले लो तो वो काफ़ी है. तो एक तो ये कि उस वक्त पे there was no such thing. So why I'm saying it's complicated is because I think everything comes out of some kind of an institutional backup or some kind of an educational sort of grounding. अब वो स्कूल भी हो सकता है, यूनिवर्सिटी भी हो सकती है, या फिर अगर नहीं है तो एक अप्रेंटिसशिप की रिवायत होती थी. म्यूज़िक में भी आप देखते हैं घराने होते हैं, वहाँ तो कुछ लिखा भी नहीं जाता ना, तो पढ़ के नहीं म्यूज़िक बजा सकते. तो आपको सीखने के बहुत तरीके हैं. तो हमने उनको फॉर्मलाइज कर दिया है एज स्कूल्स एंड कॉलेजेस, और अब कॉलेज के आगे यूनिवर्सिटी भी चिपका दिया सबने. तो बट what does that really mean? I mean, schooling and education are two different things. That's how I look at things. And I think हम schooling में कहीं ज़रा से वहाँ अटक गए हैं. तो I think contemporary times में अगर आप देखें, और इस शहर पे I think कल I couldn't be here, बड़ी लंबी चौड़ी बात हुई है लाहौर शहर को क्या हो रहा है क्यों नहीं हो रहा. And you can keep talking about it for months क्योंकि इतना कुछ हो रहा है. But that's because लोगों को वो relationship नहीं रही. Our relationship to land has to be talked about, not in terms of real estate, in terms of history, in terms of landscape, in terms of nature, in terms of environment. ये land जो है, ये जगह जो है, ये क्या है, और हम यहाँ पे हैं तो उसका क्या मतलब है. ये नहीं कि कितने दाम मिलते हैं उसके. So I think ये कोई और किस्म की conversations कहीं शुरू होएंगी तो लोग realize करेंगे. मैं एक फ़नी सा किस्सा सुना सकता हूँ. मैं एक मरतबा NCA में मुझे बुलाया था फॉर थीसिस रिव्यू, ये मैंने आपको सुनाया था. तो एक स्टूडेंट ट्राई टू मेक अ पब्लिक स्पेस आउटसाइड द म्यूजियम, NCA, पंजाब यूनिवर्सिटी एंड द टुलिंटन मार्केट. नाउ ऑफ कोर्स दिस इज ऑल Ganga Ram territory and by Ram Singh territory. And so I thought that was a great project, and I would love for something like that to happen. But when he started explaining his project and he looked at the drawings, so I thought he completely missed the point, and he by default created a space that was more for cars, and people were still in a more difficult situation. That there are no footpaths properly, you can't walk around. So he created a public space which was yet again for cars. तो मैंने थोड़े से एक दो मजाक करने के बाद से पूछा कि मुझे लगता है कि आप लाहौर से नहीं हैं, बिकॉज आई थॉट ही इज़ नॉट कनेक्टेड टू दिस हिस्टोरिकल डिस्ट्रिक्ट. इंस्टीट्यूशनल इतनी ज़बरदस्त जगह, पंजाब यूनिवर्सिटी, गवर्नमेंट कॉलेज, तो इसकी तो अपनी एक फील है. सो इट्स वेरी एस्पायरिंग स्टूडेंट के लिए तो बहुत अच्छी चीज़ होगी. तो ही सेड हाँ जी मैं लाहौर से नहीं हूँ. सो आई सेड आप कहाँ से हैं? तो ही सेड मैं बैरिया टाउन से हूँ. बैरिया टाउन से हूँ जी. सो पहले तो मैं 10 सेकंड हंसा, फिर वहाँ हंसी मजाक हो गया, एंड देन आई लिटरली आई एम नॉट किडिंग, मैं उसके बाद एक चाय का कप पकड़ के अकेला एक कोर्टयार्ड में 15 मिनट बैठा रहा कि ये इसका मतलब क्या है. बिकॉज दिस इज रियली what the new young professional minds are thinking. This is the sort of, it's not just them, it's also the institutions. And हम उस दिन बात करते हैं, it's also the conversations within your households. घर में क्या बात होती है, क्या गुफ्तगू होती है, बच्चे क्या समझते हैं, क्या देखते हैं, माँ बाप को क्या कहते हुए देखते हैं. And then because it's all about now, a moving image, whether it's in your phone or it's on your TV. But जो substance है, वो तो एक moving image है, और वो भी अगर 5 सेकंड से पहले आप flip नहीं कर सकते तो it's no good. So somehow people have to start talking about कहना अब इस ज़माने में अल्टरनेटिव लगता है, बट जो एक्चुअल ग्राउंडेड चीज़ें थी जिनसे ये सारा कुछ निकला है, उनको समझने की आई थिंक पहले ज़रूरत है. आई थिंक आई स्पोकन टू मच, आई एम सॉरी.
And you see, I don't know much about the Lahore hospital, unfortunately, because I couldn't visit it too often. But I just want to tell you that it's so important to be owning a thing. And in Delhi, the family of Sir Ganga Ram that's left behind, he had 3 sons. And the elder one was Sevak Ram, who was with him on the agriculture aspect for a long time, had really no children. I mean, he had a wife with a child, and that was about all. The second son, who built the medical college and who built the hospital also in a way, he died before that, but his wife built it, had some children. But the one who came here, Kesha Ram, was Balak Ram's sort of from that wing of the family. So the third son was the one who had many children, about 8 of them. And so that branch was very, sort of vibrant, and they are the ones, a lot of the children, grandchildren are now running the hospital in Delhi. So they have a very interesting system where they have a board of directors, and I think 2/3 are doctors and from the hospital, and the remaining are family members. And they meet every week, periodic, I mean, literally every Thursday. And so they keep reviewing the problems and the issues. And so the hospital is run impeccably. And it's got 1/4 is charity and 3/4 is paid, but then there are tiers, very expensive, average. Sonia Gandhi's favorite hospital is Gangaram Hospital in Delhi. She goes there for any treatment and every treatment, including her COVID. She spent 2 weeks there. So obviously she spent a lot of money, I'm sure. But I'm just saying that if you own a thing in Pakistan, unfortunately, I think it's partly government owned now, the Sir Gangaram Hospital, and the other, I think, the Sir Gangaram's foundation here in Lahore, a small organization, have some little bit of supervision of the hospital. So it's not, unfortunately, the kind of hospital they have in Delhi. And Delhi one came much later, 1952, whereas this was 23 technically and 43 actual building. But the dispensary and system started in 23 by Sir Gangaram himself. But it's much lower down in terms of its services as compared to the one in Delhi, unfortunately, because of the ownership and stakes of the, it's now a public hospital, so it's, apparently it's not in very good state. Yes, our Sir Gangaram in Lahore, and it's a charity hospital like the Mayo Hospital. So everybody goes to these more expensive hospitals where they have to pay a lot of money, but they don't mind because they get proper services. Whereas, the poor are left to the the charity hospitals.
But who, I mean, in terms of ownership, would you place the onus on? I mean, who needs to own it? I mean, say I'm someone who has no choice.
No, I think that if the trust was given more responsibility, some more funding from some philanthropists like he did, started, it may improve. But right now it's just left to the devices of the government, all the financing and everything. So I don't think till then that changes, it will not improve its qualities, its services. So it should become like a public-private partnership, like it is in Delhi.
Raza, do you want to answer that question?
Which she mentioned earlier on now. Something else she was asking you.
So, okay, briefly, I think it's not super complicated. What it needs is commitment and
Present day Lahore.
Yeah,
present day.
First of all, you need to talk. It's a great thing कि ये किताब आई है. कुछ ऐसा पहले की शराब उसकी वजह से there were conversations.
Interest, yeah.
But then these things go away. So this is a very good time for institutions and other, even governments, to pick this up. PWD. Look at the stellar performance of PWD in this book. So why can't this become a seminar that has a purpose? That has a purpose for all of these various stakeholders actually have to perform. You sit down and talk about this system that people always have kind of forgotten. And how can they come back? We need dialogue. We need to start talking about it, especially with younger.
In fact, the other day when we were all three talking 2 days earlier, he had a great idea. I said, the family wants to come from Delhi to participate in something here. So I said, a typical little launch is not my idea of, participation. So he said, why not use the Lahore Museum premises? And I said, yes, we can have a day-long Sir Gangaram, day, and have, like what you just said, PWD should be brought in to make them aware that, this is the role of PWD then, and, what are you doing now, kind of thing. And of course, all other aspects, and have this kind of dialogue to make it, again, a vibrant.
I think sometimes it's okay to be clear about the purpose of creating.
Yes.
Not just dialogue, that it just kind of goes away from it.
Yes, but in this term, it would be, in this case, it would be preservation of the heritage, creating a kind of a space where people can visit and revisit him. A museum, I guess, something of that sort, or just a kind of memorial which has a lot of data inside it, audio, visual, and other, so that people can, gain understanding and knowledge that he wished to impart, I guess, in his own way, by doing all these things that he did.
I can say memorial. I mean, we don't really have that. Even if that's Bhatti was a memorial, it's a
Samadhi, unfortunately, is just a stone building with a stone block. There's ashes supposed to be lying, and it's got a gate that's locked. Nobody can enter that premises. I don't know what purpose it's serving. So you can't have that kind of a samadhi. You have to have an ongoing, active one where people can go and watch and listen and dialogue. I mean, I think if they can open the samadhi, it's great, but the samadhi is surrounded by buildings now and gullies and horrible atmosphere. I mean, it's just inaccessible, unfortunately. Although that was by the river banks of the Ganga, I'm saying. Ravi. So anyway, yeah, Ravi. So it was on the banks of the Ravi at that time. And now it's just a neighborhood with junkyard and junk shops and tire shops and workshops and that kind of thing.
But I think in terms of society, it's not for people. So maybe he is in the right place in terms of being.
Yes, you're right, but I don't think the people even recognize that. They don't really care about being there. He just happens to be surrounded by them. So it's unfortunately, yeah.
My question is that, sorry, it's long. So if you want your heroes to be remembered, you need to induce that information when, at an early age. Like we do about Qaid-e-Azam or the medals that, they're always there in the martial room. What I don't understand is that somehow Ganga Ram's name lived in this area. But he didn't get the recognition that he deserved. So I was wondering, who do you think is the enemy? Is it the state, the people in power, or we as Pakistanis are just wired ignorant?
Yeah, I would answer that first, and then I can ask also you to answer it. But state, I don't think so. Figures some people in the state may have a sort of closed mentality and don't want to recognize his presence in history or his contribution. But I think it's more the people themselves and the apathy that we as people, for example, you were born in a hospital with this name. You should have bothered to find out who he is. When he built it, what did he do other than that, etc., etc. So you are people and I'm people. And then suddenly I got up one day and said, I better answer some of these questions, and find out. And then when I found out, I said, I better put them together in a little writing form. So I did that. But I don't think many people want to do that. And I think there was a time when they were even pushing to change the name of the hospital. But they didn't succeed. Do you know about that, when they tried to change the name of the hospital? Yeah, okay, you do know. So yes, they didn't succeed, but they wanted to.
I just wanted to add a little comment and then, sort of share a thought. I think more or less, mostly Lahoris have I feel, have lost their touch and feel for their heritage because it's nowhere to be seen and nowhere to be felt. It needs to be seen and felt and touched, so to say, in various ways. So I'll share a small little comment and then I'll share a thought. If it's practicable, we can all think about it in another forum and make a go for it. I sit in a building. I sit meaning my office is in a building, close by here. तो मैंने उसमें 2 तस्वीरें लगा दी अपने दफ्तर में. एक भगत सिंह की तस्वीर लगा दी, एक सर जॉन लॉरेंस की तस्वीर लगा दी. ठीक है जी. जॉन लॉरेंस की तस्वीर इसलिए लगाई कि उनका घर था. Back in time, it was built for him, or he lived in it as one of the first residents. और भगत सिंह की तस्वीर इसलिए लगाई कि उनका ट्रायल उस बिल्डिंग में हुआ था जिधर मेरा दफ्तर है. ठीक है जी. तो जब मेरे दफ्तर में लोग आते हैं तो पूछते हैं कि ये क्यों लगी हुई है, तो मैं उन्हें कहता हूँ कि बाहर वाला कतबा पढ़ के आ जाएं, आपको पता चल जाएगा. तो एक कतबा भी लगा हुआ है वहाँ पे इन दोनों की. So there's a touch and a feel factor to that small little piece of Lahore, which is called Punch House.
What house?
Punch House.
Okay.
Close to the Choburji ke paas. So that was just a comment. In my own small little way, I took my own step towards feeling the heritage of Lahore. I think we all need to get together in our own capacities and create some kind of a space if it's practical and practicable, and if everyone thinks it's worthwhile, where we can create, a venue for people to come and see and feel and touch the, and be part of the heritage of Lahore. I don't know how it can be done. It can be done in so many different ways. It can be done through putting up statues of these various people. It can be done through electronic methodology, gadgetries, etc. जैसे कि शारमीन ने वो National History Museum बनाया, what a wonderful contribution that is. We can gather all together. We can create the space. We can provide the physical space, and we can create a little lobby. And I'm pretty sure the state, as it was spoken about a little while ago, the state would be more than ready to provide. The government would be more than ready to provide. Maybe we can do it even in Lawrence Gardens or something like that. It's just an idea, a thought. Raza, if people of our thinking can get together on this, I think it'd be a contribution in the right direction. Thank you.
You're sitting right next to Kutsia, who does the Lahore Biennale, and what Biennale has been doing in both its editions is take the whole city back to these places that have been forgotten. Which includes, we were talking about Bradlow Hall, everybody is now looking at, Bradlow Hall, kya kyun. Pada hua tha, khandar girne wala tha, right? So, Maqsad, and this foundation that she runs is all about public art. It's for the whole city. It's a free entry to 13, 14 sites in the whole city. And the idea is, जो आप बिल्कुल कह रहे हैं, to feel that place. And उस बहाने से थोड़ी आर्ट पे भी गुफ्तगू हो जाती है, थोड़े लोगों को भी आप मिल लेते हैं. It's just a change from your everyday thing. But one event every 2 years is not enough. So then this event should trigger the conversation in a certain institution, certain other group of some other,
It's actually about that feel. Once you feel something for a place or a person, then you go after them. I mean, even here you see the instance, if I'm so taken by someone, I don't know who they are, then I start doing it. Often in city में ये जो काम हो रहा है, the people they're not owning these things. I mean, the market, so we can until you have everyone, not just a certain group of people, having interest in it. Once everyone, the people, I mean, अगर हम smart की बात करें, if the people around there are made to take ownership, look after the place, understand it, कौन है ये है, it can become fantastic. But until that happens, you have a certain group, they'll just go and say, अच्छा ये smart है, ये करना, let's celebrate. जो अभी भी बात है कि once in a blue moon, we do that. That takes a different kind of approach. I personally feel. So I think it is a wonderful idea. It would be lovely to happen. I mean, even if we can do it in one place, then it sets an example for a lot of history that's forgotten here, not just around another. Sorry, I just interrupted. It's not working.
Actually, would like to add on to what you say. Thank you so much for this effort, because I think that's what we were in some capacity trying to establish a connection with the government and the people and the education and the lives, sharing those kind of things. With also Krishna Ram's visit as well. So the Biden Foundation, because we're having a calendar of events and things we do, created a time during this time of all these various thinkers and philosophers and key turning points for the city at different times. We created a timeline for our visit as part of the program. We are happy to actually look into that and elaborating on it. Like what you say, bring it into more mainstream conversation. The more one is exposed and the more we invest in our future, in past, the future becomes clearer and we take more ownership to it.
I think the person who made this documentary, which is showing on the big screen, she was here, Tanya. She's gone now. It was a.
मेरी इग्नोरेंस है, सवाल में बड़ी जालाना सवाल कर रहा हूँ. ये जो शौकत खानम हॉस्पिटल बना, लोगों से पैसे लेके और चंदा पूरी दुनिया में अपील की गई और फंक्शंस करके, तो गंगाराम कैसे तहरीक चलाते थे अपने आप ये काम के लिए, किस तरह उन्होंने काम को शुरू किया?
उनका तहरीक तो ऐसा सच नहीं था, उनकी एक्चुअली बहुत इमेजिनेशन थी और उन्होंने बहुत कमाई की एग्रीकल्चर। उन्होंने इतनी मॉडर्नाइज तरीके से एग्रीकल्चर को उस जमाने में किया कि उसकी बहुत आउटपुट हुई और बहुत उनको वेल्थ मिली। I mean, it was uncountable wealth. I mean, it just couldn't count on it. So he said, ये तो बस अब मैं खर्च करूँगा। तो उसी तरह उन्होंने फिर वो हॉस्पिटल बनाया और कुछ उनके उस जमाने के अमीर दोस्त थे लाहौर में, जिनको जो होता है जेंट्री लाहौर की, उन्होंने उनको कॉन्ट्रीब्यूशंस दी और उनको कैश में उनको हेल्प किया। वो एक था, लेकिन उन्होंने कोई ऐसा कोई मूवमेंट नहीं की कि पैसे इकट्ठे करने की।
तो ये जो गवर्नमेंट PWD और ये डिपार्टमेंट गवर्नमेंट के उस वक्त के वो उनकी हेल्प करते?
1903 में वो रिटायर हुए, उसमें काम करते और जब काम करते थे तो उस वक्त तो उनको कोई हेल्प नहीं करता था। उनके प्रोजेक्ट्स जो मिलते थे उनको बनाने के लिए, that was all. So no, PWD did not help them at all in the projects he did afterwards. 1903 के बाद उस एग्रीकल्चर उसको उनको 1903 में एक टुकड़ा मिला जमीन का एज रिटायरमेंट बेनिफिट। उन्होंने कहा ओ अब मैं इसको दिखाता हूँ कि किस तरह इतने से जमीन को मैं बना के और इसमें पैदावार करके मैं कमाई कर सकता हूँ। वो करते 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 इतना बढ़ गया कि 80,000 एकड़ उन्होंने अल्टीमेटली वो किए, आबाद किए। और ब्रिटिश उनको बहुत ग्रेटफुल थी बिकॉज उस वक्त ब्रिटिश को जमीन चाहिए थी वॉर में लोगों को इंडक्ट करने के लिए, पेजेंट्स को। तो वो जमीन उनको देते थे कि तुम जाओ लड़ो, फिर तुम्हें ये जमीन दो। उनके पास वो जमीन नहीं थी अवेलेबल। जब इन्होंने आबाद की तो फिर उन्होंने कहा कि चलो अब हमारे पास जमीन है, इसको जितना देते हो दो ताकि आबाद करना चाहे हमारे। और यही हुआ कि उन्होंने 18,000 एकड़ और भी ज्यादा, लेकिन अपनी मेहनत से, अपनी सोच से, अपनी लगन से और अपनी इमेजिनेशन उन्होंने टेक्निक्स लगा के नहीं, और मैकेनाइज्ड मशीनरी वगैरह जो उस जमाने में नहीं थी, लेकिन वो इंग्लैंड गए लेके आए और उसको उन्होंने फिर इस्तेमाल किया जमीन पर। तो एग्रीकल्चर वाज मेनली ही सेज क्या कहते बड़ा फेमस एक था ये कल्चर वल्चर, आई डोंट नो, आई ओनली नो एग्रीकल्चर।
आई थिंक उनकी एक थी आई थिंक एक इस किताब में
हाइड्रोइलेक्ट्रिक
नहीं वो एक बात की उन्होंने ये भी कहा था कि ही डिडंट क्विट अंटिल ही ये नहीं थी कि जब उनके पास बहुत दौलत थी फिर वो इंसान की मदद करे।
ऐसे बहुत बड़े
इंसानियत भी थी,
बहुत बड़े
शुरुआत से वो करते थे,
हमेशा देते थे जो भी उनके पास होता। यू राइट, अमीर होने तक इंतजार नहीं किया।
इसके अलावा एक उनका मेजर कंट्रीब्यूशन उनका ये जो उन्होंने अपने घर का डोनेट किया था हैली कॉलेज ऑफ कॉमर्स। मैं वहीं से पढ़ा हूँ और मैंने एमफिल भी वहीं से किया था, तो वो मेरे घर के करीब ही है हैली कॉलेज बैंकिंग एंड फिनांस। वो उनका अपना घर ही था जो उन्होंने डोनेट किया था। तो डोनेशन वाइज उनका जैसे हॉस्पिटल हो गया, ये घर के हैली कॉलेज हो गया, इससे 1000 प्लस जो ग्रेजुएट हर साल वहाँ से होते हैं, तो एक ये भी उनका बहुत बड़ा कंट्रीब्यूशन था।
एक्चुअली जो अभी तस्वीर है किताब में, वो घर था उनका, बड़ा खूबसूरत छोटा सा बंगला था, वो ओरिजिनल हैली कॉलेज था।
जी।
लेकिन उनकी आप देखिए मॉडेस्टी, मेरा तस्वीर मेरा नाम नहीं लगाना है, जो गवर्नर था हेली आप अपने नाम पे बना लें,
वेलकम हेली,
और आप मेरा घर हाजिर है। लेकिन माय फादर स्टडीड देयर लेट 40s में शायद, मिड 40s, एंड उनको नहीं पता था कि किसने ये स्टार्ट किया कॉलेज। तो मैंने उनको बताया कि आपको पता है किसने स्टार्ट किया? कहते नहीं। मैंने कहा आपको पता होना चाहिए क्योंकि वो अपने आप को आगे नहीं करते थे। तो कहते हैं हाँ मुझे पता है कि वो ऐसे थे, लेकिन आई एम सरप्राइज कि हम सबको नहीं पता। So that's the kind of person he was, कि अपना बंगला चाबी यूं रखती
ऐसे ही
एडी के सामने रखा कि ये बनाओ लड़कों के लिए, क्योंकि we need boys to be trained in commerce। अब जिन्ना साहब जब आए 46 में शायद, तो उन्होंने सब बच्चों से कहा my father कि आप लोग सब बैंकिंग और फाइनेंस में जाओ अगर पाकिस्तान को बिल्ड करना है। तो सारे उन्हें दौड़ लगाई एडी कॉलेज।
And that was the step कि अब जो है हैली को फर्दर जो स्टेप डिवाइड कर दिया गया है। अब हैली कॉलेज ऑफ बैंकिंग एंड फाइनेंस भी है, हैली कॉलेज ऑफ कॉमर्स भी है, एंड वी बोथ स्टडी देयर हैली कॉलेज ऑफ कॉमर्स। तो एक्चुअली दैट वाज द स्टेप कि अभी भी उनका जो है
At least you people know who founded it.
Yeah.
Now you know.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
उन्होंने साइन भी किया
Yeah, yeah.
And-
Okay. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Raza and
Thank you.
for a very interesting conversation. I'll learn to use the mic. Okay. Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Shah Ahmed.